Amazing Man Comics, number 8, December 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This issue went on sale November 13th, 1939. Gerber rates this book uncommon. Bill Everett provided the cover art here, as well as some interior art. Catman gets in touch with his feminine side in this issue, dressing as a woman. There's a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. Eamon the Amazing Man is featured on the cover with art by Bill Everett in this superhero war cover. Eamon the Amazing Man is featured in a 10-page story written and drawn by Bill Everett in this early superhero strip featuring John Eamon as Amazing Man, and the German Nazis appear in this story. Involved in an aerial dogfight, Eamon is shot down and captured by the Germans, who send him to concentration camp 23365 AC. The Return of the Catman is the title of the 4-page Catman story, written and drawn by Tart Mills, an early superhero strip featuring Barton Stone as Catman. Disguised as an old lady, Catman will catch Gypsy at his hotel hideout. Iron Skull is a 9-page story written and drawn by Carl Burgos. It's an early superhero strip featuring the Iron Skull and the villain Magno. Magician from Mars is 7 pages drawn by John Giunta. It's a science fiction comic strip featuring Jane QX3 as Magician from Mars. The Magician from Mars saves a man jumping from a bridge and a cowboy at the rodeo. Mini Midget the Super Midget is a 6-page story drawn by John Kolb. It's a superhero strip featuring Mini Midget and the villain, The Power. Chuck Hardy, Land Beneath the Sea is 7 pages, written and drawn by Frank Thomas, a science fiction comic strip. The Football Mystery is the title of the 7-page Mighty Man strip, written and drawn by Martin Filchock. It's a superhero story featuring the 12-foot giant Mighty Man playing football. The Shark appears in an 8-page story written and drawn by Lou Glanzman. It's a superhero strip featuring the Shark, also Johnny the gang chauffeur, and the Fisherman Gang, who are gangsters. All-American Comics, number 9, December 1939, published by DC Comics. This is the second appearance of Ultraman. The editor at this time at DC was M.C. Gaines, with Sheldon Mayer as the assistant editor. The American Way, Gary Concord, the Ultraman, Red, White, and Blue are all featured on the cover, with art by Walter Galley, John Blummer, and William Smith. It's a mix of adventure, drama, and science fiction strips, likely assembled by Sheldon Mayer. Gary Concord, the Ultraman, is the 12-page story written and drawn by John Blummer under the alias Don Shelby. His science fiction strip features part 2 of the origin of the Ultraman. 1,000 Years a Minute, Part 3 is the titles of the Adventures in the Unknown 6-page strip written by Carl Claudy with art by Stan Ashmeyer. The science fiction strip features Ted Dolliver, Alan Kane, and Dr. Lazar. Alan and Ted are now in prehistoric times. Scribbly Teaches the Principal is the title of the 4-page Scribbly strip written and drawn by Sheldon Mayer. There is a promotional ad for Flash Comics in this issue. Popsicle Pete is featured in 2 pages, written and drawn by Sheldon Mayer. Funny Pages, Volume 3, Number 10, December 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This issue went on sale October 27, 1939. The editor at Centaur was Joe Hardy. There's a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. The Arrow makes his second cover appearance ever, courtesy of Carl Burgos. Artists in this issue include Jack Cole and Paul Gustafson. The Arrow is featured on the cover, drawn by Carl Burgos. There is an ad in this issue for Amazing Mystery Funnies. Christmas Capers is a 1-page strip written and drawn by Jack Cole. Diana Dean in Hollywood is 4 pages written and drawn by Tart Mills. Funny Stuff is a 2-page text story drawn by Martin Filchock. Drive Like the Devil is the title of the 1-page Jitney Joe strip written and drawn by Paul Gustafson. The Arrow returns in a 6-page story written and drawn by Paul Gustafson in this early superhero strip. And The Story Behind Stamps is a 1-page text article featuring some historic figures such as Charles Lindbergh, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Herbert Hoover, the Panama Canal, and Teddy Roosevelt. It's a stamp collecting feature. Jumbo Comics number 11, December 1939, published by Fiction House Comics. This issue went on sale October 13th, 1939. It's the third comic format issue of this title. Gerber lists this book as uncommon. At Fiction House, the editor was Malcolm Reese, with Will Eisner as the art director and Jerry Iger as the feature editor. There's a Mile High Pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church Collection, as well as a Rockford Pedigree copy. ZX5 is featured on the cover, drawn by Lou Fine. In this spy cover, appears to be a science fiction cover that really has nothing to do with the ZX5 story inside. Sheena appears in a 10-page story, Land of Giant Men, drawn by Bob Powell. The Hawk appears in 9 pages, written and drawn by Will Eisner in his historical strip. Bobby is a half-page short from writer-artist Jerry Iger. Stuart Taylor in Weird Stories of the Supernatural is 6 pages, drawn by Lou Fine. It's a science fiction strip. Wilton of the West appears in 9 pages, drawn by Lou Fine in this Western story. And The Count of Monte Cristo is 4 pages, drawn by Lou Fine in his historical strip featuring the Count of Monte Cristo. Amazing Mystery Funnies, Volume 2, Number 12, December 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This key issue is the first appearance of the Space Patrol, feature drawn by collector favorite Basil Wolverton. The cover is by Paul Gustafson, featuring Phantom of the Fair, and Speed Centaur is seen in the inset. Tarp Mills also drew in this issue, which went on sale November 4th, 1939. The editor at Centaur was Joseph Hardy, using the alias Uncle Joe. Meet the Artist Who Draws Speed Centaur is the forward and introduction page, written by Joseph Hardy as Uncle Joe, with art illustrations by Malcolm Kildale and Bill Everett. Amazing Man is featured in a half-page advertisement. The Phantom of the Fair appears in an 8-page story written and drawn by Paul Gustafson in this early superhero comic strip featuring the Phantom of the Fair, which would be reprinted in Phantoman number 3 in 1940. Daredevil Barry Finn is 6 pages, drawn by Tarp Mills, featuring the characters Barry Finn and Frogga. Space Patrol is 7 pages, written and drawn by Basil Wolverton in his unique science fiction strip, featuring the first appearance of Space Patrol member Nick Nelson. The Hidden Empire Part 4 is the latest chapter in the 6-page Don Dixon and the Hidden Empire story. Looking Over Your Magazines is a 2-page text article written and drawn by John Giunta, featuring different illustrations. A text feature created by editor Joe Hardy, devoted to reviews of fan magazines, all reviewed by the fan publisher John Giunta. Fanzines reviewed include Fantasy News, New Phantom, The Fantast, Fantascience Digest, and Spaceways. There's also a small illustrated advertisement from Spencer Fireworks Company. It is the year 2009 AD is the title of an 8-page John Linton Flyer Scientist adventure strip written and drawn by Harry Francis Campbell. It's a science fiction comic strip featuring the scientist John Linton, and it takes place in the year 2009 AD. Speed Centaur appears in 9 pages, drawn by Malcolm Kildale in this superhero strip. Adam the Atom Smasher is a 1-page story drawn by Fred Schwab. It's a humor science story. A scientist invents a super atom bombarder, which can harness the energy of 10 gazillion atoms per second and will cause the Earth to spin around 1,400 times as fast, causing 1 day to pass every minute. The ignoramus, the scientist, is explaining this to doesn't really understand the concept, but wonders what effect the device will have on people. Keen Detective Funnies, Volume 2, Number 12, December 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This issue went on sale October 27th, 1939. There is a Mile High Pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church Collection. This issue features Bill Everett art. Jerry O'Keefe is featured on the cover, drawn by Frank Frollo. It's a detective mystery theme. Masked Marvel is 12 pages, drawn by Ben Thompson in this detective mystery / superhero strip featuring the Masked Marvel and the villain Anton Rauch. This story would be reprinted in Masked Marvel number 3 in 1940. The Eye Sees is 8 pages, written and drawn by Frank Thomas. It's a superhero strip featuring the first appearance of the Eye and would be reprinted in Detective Eye number 2 in 1940. Single series number 13, December 1939, published by United Features Syndicate. This issue is completely dedicated to Louis Dope, who originally appeared in the early 1920s in comic newspaper strips, appearing in the New York World, created by Milt Gross. This issue is completely dedicated to Louis Dope and Colonel Wowzer, who are both featured on the cover, written and drawn by Johnny Devlin. And all the strips are based on these 2 strips, both written and drawn by Johnny Devlin. Crackerjack Funnies, number 18, December 1939, published by Dell Comics. This issue features the first appearance of Stratosphere Jim. The editor at Dell was Oscar Lebec. Speed Bolton Air Ace is featured on the cover, drawn by Al McWilliams. Don Winslow appears in a 4-page story from writer Lieutenant Frank V. Martinek with art by Leon Baroth. Red Rider, the Western hero, appears in a 7-page story written and drawn by Fred Harmon. Speed Bolton Air Ace is featured in a 4-page story drawn by Al McWilliams. Western star Tom Mix appears in Tom Mix and the Story of Hoodoo Ranch, a 4-page story drawn by Al Lewin, and this is the last appearance of Tom Mix in this title, copyright 1939 by Stephen Schlesinger. Eulala Returns to His Home is the title of the 3-page Tarzan text story, copyright Edgar Rice Burroughs. Action Comics number 19, December 1939, published by DC Comics. This issue actually marked the run of consecutive Superman covers that continues all the way to the present day. This issue went on sale October 24th, 1939. The editor at DC at this time was Vincent Sullivan. There's a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this book as well as a Rockford pedigree copy. Superman is featured on the cover, drawn by creator Joe Shuster in this early superhero comic book cover, the final issue of the 1930s, and the start of the golden age officially, where superheroes are dominating the covers full time. The Purple Plague is the title of the 13-page Superman story from the team of Siegel and Schuster, featuring Clark Kent as Superman, Dr. Travers, and the villain Ultra-Humanite. A purple plague sweeps Metropolis, killing citizens left and right. Only Dr. Travers has discovered antidote, and Superman must stop the Ultra-Humanite from killing the good doctor and prevent that cure from being used. Pat Morgan appears in a 6-page story written by Gardner Fox with art by Fred Gardenier. Clip Carson appears in a 6-page story called The Ivory Safari Part 1, written by Bill Finger with art by Bob Kane. Tex Thompson is a 10-page story drawn by Bernard Bailey, titled The Zombies Part 1. Zaytera Master Magician is featured in 11 pages in a story called The Gorilla King, written by Gardner Fox with art by Fred Gardenier. Action Comics number 19 was officially the best-selling comic book of the month on the newsstands. Super Comics number 19, December 1939, published by Dell Comics. The editor at Dell was Oscar Lebec. The cover is drawn by artist Bill Holman. There is a Dell file copy existing of this book. Dick Tracy appears in 4 pages from writer-artist Chester Gould. The Crusoes is a 6-page adventure story, copyright R.S. Calendar, possibly the first Robinson Crusoe strip ever in comic books. And Terry and the Pirates is featured in a 4-page story written and drawn by Milt Caniff. Comics on Parade, number 21, volume 2, number 9, December 1939, published by United Features Syndicate. The editor at this time was T.O. Davidson, who was also the business manager for the company United Features. Little Abner is featured on the cover, drawn by Al Capp, also featuring the character Salome. Tarzan appears in a 5-page strip called The Beasts of Tarzan, based on a script by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Unbelievable But True is a 1-page text article written and drawn by Frank N. Ernest about John Dillinger. Alice in Wonderland is a 3-page story written by Lewis Carroll and Olive Ray Scott with art by Ed Kookies. Little Abner appears in a 5-page story called Mammy Has Just Smacked Down a Ghost, written and drawn by Al Capp. Feature Books number 22, The Phantom, December 1939, published by David McKay Publications. The first 25 issues of this title was printed oversized at 9 by 12 inches with cardstock matte covers and black and white interior. The Phantom is a long-running American adventure comic strip first published by Mandrake the Magician creator Lee Falk in February 1936. The main character, the Phantom, is a fictional costumed crime fighter who operates from the fictional African country of Bangala. This entire issue is dedicated to the Phantom, who appears on the cover with Diana, drawn by Ray Moore. And there are 71 pages of comic strips written by Lee Falk with art by Ray Moore. And these come from newspaper comic strip reprints from 1936. Feature Comics number 27, December 1939, published by Quality Comics. This is the 6th issue of Quality Comics Group's first comic title, considered rare by Overstreet. This issue features the origin and first appearance of Doll Man. The editor at Quality was Ed Cronin. And Ed Cronin drew the cover feature Joe Palooka. Doll Man appears in a 4-page story titled How's Your New Experiment Working Out, Daryl? Meet the Doll Man, written and drawn by Will Eisner. It's an early superhero comic book strip featuring the first appearance of Daryl Dane as Doll Man, as well as Professor Roberts and his daughter Martha Roberts. Professor Roberts creates a marvelous chemical formula that can reduce a man to the size of a doll, but still retain the strength of 20 men. Against the advice of Roberts, Daryl Dane uses the formula to shrink himself, an action that temporarily drives him mad. Recovering his senses, he uses his newfound powers to save Martha from an extortionist. Rube Goldberg's Sideshow is a 1-page story written and drawn by Rube Goldberg. The Clock appears in a 5-page story titled Phantom Gang Escapes Police Again, written and drawn by George E. Brenner, featuring Brian O'Brien as the Clock in this early superhero strip. Charlie Chan appears in 6 pages, drawn by Alfred Andriola in the classic detective mystery strip. Ace Comics number 33, December 1939, published by David McKay Publications. It's a Thanksgiving-themed cover. This issue features the Phantom, Prince Valiant, Blondie, Crazy Cat, and many more. The Cats and Jammer Kids are featured on the cover, drawn by Joe Musial. Jungle Jim is 4 pages from artist Alex Raymond. Prince Valiant appears in 4 pages from artist Hal Foster. And the Phantom appears in 4 pages from writer Lee Falk, with art by Ray Moore. And this is published the same month that the Phantom appears in Feature Book. Detective Comics number 34, December 1939, published by DC Comics. This issue went on sale October 30th, 1939. The editor at DC at this time was Vincent Sullivan. This is the last non-Batman cover of Detective Comics. There is a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this book, as well as a Davis Crippen D pedigree copy. The superhero, the Crimson Avenger, is featured on the cover, drawn by artist Craig Flessel, featuring Lee Travis as the Crimson Avenger, and in the inset we see Bruce Wayne as the Batman. Batman is featured in a 10-page story titled Peril in Paris, written by Gardner Fox with art by Bob Kane, with backgrounds by Sheldon Moldoff. This early superhero strip features the 8th appearance ever of Batman and Bruce Wayne. This story also features Charles Mayer, Carol Mayer, Duke Dorter, the villain, and some Apache villains. After Bruce Wayne runs into a man with no face, as the Batman he learns of a sinister man responsible for it, who wants the man's money and his sister. Part of the story is reprinted in Batman number 1 in 1940. Batman creator Bob Kane also writes and draws What a Nut, a 1-page humor story featuring the character What a Nut. Spy is a 6-page story titled The Ambassador to Bolaria, written by Jerry Siegel with art by Mart Bailey in the Adventure Spy strip, featuring the characters Bart Regan and Ambassador Reynolds. Steve Malone, District Attorney, is 6 pages, written by Gardner Fox with art by Don Lynch, the detective mystery featuring Steve Malone and Mario Swift. Justice is a 2-page text story written by Gardner Fox under the alias Paul Dean. Speed Saunders, Ace Investigator, is 6 pages, titled The Spy Mystery, with art by Fred Gardenier. And Slam Bradley returns in 10 pages from writer Jerry Siegel and artist Mart Bailey. The detective mystery features Slam Bradley and Shorty Morgan. The Funnies, number 38, December 1939, published by Dell Comics. Rex, King of the Deep, is featured on the cover. John Carter of Mars is in a 4-page strip drawn by John Coleman Burroughs in the classic science fiction tale. Rex, King of the Deep, appears in a 6-page strip drawn by Alden McWilliams. And Alden McWilliams also draws the 4-page The Crime Busters strip. The Wonderland of Oz is 5 pages from artist Walt Sprouse based on The Wizard of Oz. And there is an Mr. District Attorney 6-page story. Tip Top Comics, number 44, December 1939, published by United Features Syndicate. Captain and the Kids are featured on the cover, plus 5 pages of strips. Other highlights include Tarzan, Lil Abner, Ella Cinders, Jim Hardy, and others. There is a Lost Valley pedigree copy of this book. King Comics, number 44, December 1939, published by David McKay Publications. The editor at this time at David McKay was Ruth Plumley Thompson, with Marjorie McKay as the managing editor. Popeye is featured on the cover, drawn by Joe Musial. And Thimble Theater starring Popeye runs for 4 pages. There is a Lost Valley pedigree copy of this book. Flash Gordon appears in 4 pages in the science fiction strip drawn by Alex Raymond. Sport features as a 1-page sport filler drawn by Jack Burnley. Brick Bradford, the popular science fiction comic strip, returns in 4 pages written by William Ritt with art by Clarence Gray. Mandrake the Magician is 4 pages from writer Lee Falk and art by Phil Davis in the classic early action superhero tale. Radio Patrol is 4 pages in a strip called Pat and Sammy Have Trapped an Acrobatic Burglar, written by Eddie Sullivan with art by Charlie Schmidt, and features a villain called the Cat. Adventure Comics, number 45, December 1939, published by DC Comics. This issue went on sale November 3rd, 1939. The editor at DC was Vincent Sullivan. There is a Mile High pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection, as well as a Rockford pedigree copy, a Billy Wright pedigree copy, and a Lamont Larson pedigree copy. The cover art is by Fred Gardenier with a jungle theme. The early DC superhero The Sandman appears in a 10-page story written by Gardner Fox with art by Craig Flessel. Wesley Dodds as the Sandman appears alongside the first appearance of the villain Gloria Gordon. A female singer is threatened to be kidnapped, but Sandman discovers she is in on the plot to do so in order to fleece an insurance company. Little Willie is a 1-page story written and drawn by Bob Kane. This is the first appearance and yet only appearance of the Little Willie strip. Professor Doolittle returns in 2 pages written and drawn by Bob Kane. Federal Men is 4 pages from the team of Jerry Siegel and artist Mart Bailey, featuring the first appearance and death of the villain Rutska. Rusty and His Pals is 4 pages from writer-artist Bob Kane in a story called The Menace of Chen Fu, Part 5. And Chen Fu, the villain, dies in this issue. Cotton Carver is 6 pages written by Gardner Fox with art by Ogden Whitney, featuring Cotton Carver and King Marl. Popular Comics, number 46, December 1939, published by Dell Comics. The staff at Dell at this time was editor Oscar Lebec and George T. Delacourt Jr. was the president, Helen Meyer, vice president, J. Fred Henry, vice president, and Margarita Delacourt was the secretary. The Masked Pilot is featured on the cover, drawn by Al McWilliams in this Adventure Aviation cover, featuring the Black Phantom. Martin the Marvel Man is an 8-page story called Far Off in Space on the Planet Antaklia, is written by G. Ellerbrock with art by William Kent. It's an adventure science fiction strip featuring the first appearance and origins of Martin the Marvel Man and Vanna. The Hurricane Kids is 8 pages written by Albert Hartge with art by Will Eli in this adventure historical strip. Gangbusters appears in 6 pages, drawn by Al McWilliams. The crime story features the first appearances of John Winston, Pete Baxter, and Tony Carter, and would be reprinted in 4-color comics number 7 in 1940. Mr. Wong is 8 pages, titled The Mystery of Mr. Wong Part 4, drawn by Tom Hickey, and is an adaptation of the Monogram Pictures movie The Mystery of Mr. Wong, starring Boris Karloff. Masked Pilot is 8 pages, drawn by Bob Jenny. It's an aviation adventure story, and it features a villain called the Black Phantom. Captain Tornado is 3 pages, drawn possibly by Newt Alfred. It's an early science fiction comic strip featuring the first appearances of Captain Tornado and Professor Bordani. Calling All Boys and Girls Be a Gangbuster is the name of a gangbuster popularity contest. More Fun Comics number 50, December 1939, published by DC Comics. The 1930s ended with DC having their first issue title to hit a 50th issue, and it's only the second regular comic title ever to reach 50th issue by this point. The cover features a football theme, and it is the last sports theme cover for this title, which would soon switch to superheroes full time. This issue went on sale October 28, 1939. The editor at DC was Vincent Sullivan. There's a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. The cover art is by Fred Gardenier, featuring football players. King Carter appears in a 6-page story written and drawn by Paul Loretta, featuring Prince Ali Ghazi. Buccaneer is 5 pages in a story called In the Palace of Natria Part 1, written and drawn by Bernard Bailey, featuring the villain False King of Natria. Radio Squad is 6 pages, written by Jerry Siegel, with art by Mart Bailey in a story called Car Stealing on Increase, and features a gang of car thieves along with Sandy Keene and Larry. Mickey Mouse Magazine number 51, Volume 5, number 3, December 1939, published by Western Publishing. This issue went on sale November 15th, 1939. There is a Western Publishing file copy in existence. It's a Pinocchio Christmas cover and predates the movie's release. It's the first appearance of Jiminy Cricket, and the Pinocchio series begins in this issue. Mickey Mouse is featured on the cover alongside Pinocchio. And there is a 5-page Pinocchio text story. Wisecracks is edited by Donald Duck in a 1-page letters page. Mickey Mouse appears in a 1-page comic story. And yet there's another 1-page one later on. Robinson Crusoe appears in a 2-page story that includes Mickey Mouse. And Walt Disney Presents Donald's Penguin in Technicolor is the title of a Donald Duck advertisement. Famous Funnies number 65, December 1939, published by Eastern Color. The editor at Eastern Color was Stephen Douglas. This was still the longest running comic book on the newsstands month to month at this time. The cover art is by Victor Pazmino, featuring a Christmas Santa Claus cover along with Uncle LB and Pigtails. Buck Rogers appears in 4 pages written by Phil Nolan with art by Dick Calkins in the classic science fiction strip. Lightnin' and the Lone Rider is a 2-page story written and drawn by Jack Kirby in one of his earliest comic works in the Western Frontier Tale. And writer-artist Jerry Iger, under the alias Bob Bliss, gives us 1 page of his humor strip, Queenie.